Now to Washington, where an overnight move by Chief Justice John Roberts allows a U.S. foreign aid package to stay frozen for now. Roberts paused a district court order for the Trump administration to pay up millions by midnight Wednesday. I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand. As you see there, she's live at the White House for us. Natalie, walk us through what we're hearing from the Supreme Court on this, how it reached its decision.
Good morning, Errol. And specifically what we're hearing from the Chief Justice, because it's Roberts who oversees requests for emergency relief from cases stemming from Washington, D.C. District Court. So that's why he made this decision last night, saying in this ruling that the administration did not need to immediately pay an estimated $2 billion in foreign assistance to pay for projects that had already been completed. Now, his ruling came after a federal judge here in Washington gave the State Department and USAID until midnight Wednesday to pay the bills. But the Trump administration argued that that timeline was impossible to comply with, that it required multiple steps to reinitiate these payments, and that could take multiple weeks. So they pushed back, appealed to the Supreme Court, and again, Chief Justice last night ruling, making this administrative stay, which is really just a pause until the Supreme Court can consider the case further, which is expected perhaps later this week. But Errol, this latest development comes as the Associated Press obtained a memo that the Trump administration plans or says it plans to eliminate 90% of USAID foreign aid contracts and around $60 billion in overall U.S. assistance around the world.
Wow. So the conclusion for what happens to it ultimately hasn't been reached just yet. And I know the president hosted his first... Yeah, and the president hosted his first cabinet meeting yesterday. Elon Musk, his special advisor, was there standing for a portion of it. What did they say about the firing of federal workers?
Right. This cabinet meeting comes as this new memo was released by the administration, which tells agencies to submit reorganization plans, preparing for large-scale firings or reduction in force. Submit those plans by mid-March. And Elon Musk, who, aside from the president, was the first featured speaker during this cabinet meeting, he was asked if the administration has a target number of federal employees that they are looking to cut. And he didn't put a number on it. Instead, he said that they're looking to eliminate non-essential positions or people who are not doing their jobs well. We know from this administration memo that agency heads have been asked to look for areas of, duplication or redundancy. But the issue of that directive from Musk over the weekend for federal employees to list their 5 accomplishments, that also came up. The White House saying that around 1 million federal workers had responded. But a reporter in the cabinet meeting asked, well, what happens to those other federal workers who haven't responded? Take a listen to what the president and Musk had to say.
Those million people that haven't responded, though, Elon, they are on the bubble. Now, maybe they don't exist. Maybe we're paying people that don't exist.
I think that email perhaps was best interpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse?
But remember, this highlights the continued mixed messages from the administration because, Errol, as you know, as we've reported, some of those agency heads told their employees not to respond, especially agencies dealing with national security. They said, pause those responses. We have our own procedures for internal review. And ultimately, the Office of Personnel Management had to say this is up to individual agencies to decide whether or not they want to make the employees respond to this latest directive.
Yeah, very important point. Natalie, thank you very much.
But we start here this morning with hundreds of people who worked at the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, who are now cleaning out their desks today. It comes the very same day CBS News has confirmed nearly $60 billion in grants have been cut from USAID and the State Department. CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns is live outside of USAID headquarters this morning in Washington and joins me now. So I can see already behind you, Caitlin, there's a group of people that are gathered. Who are they and what are you seeing?
Yeah, you can see a group gathered. They've been growing by the minutes here. And essentially, anytime a worker or now a former worker of USAID comes out of the building with their belongings, this crowd is cheering them on. What is happening today is that USAID workers were given an increment of time, 15 minutes, to come in and clear out their belongings from their desks or workspaces. That is throughout the day and kind of depending on what specific department. So we've been here since about 7:30 this morning, and we've seen people inside going into the offices with suitcases, with reusable grocery bags to collect their belongings. I talked to several people who were in tears, in shock about the way in which they were rapidly fired. I also talked to a former or a current Foreign Service officer who does a lot of work with USAID and is feeling in a limbo mode, has been working abroad and is coming back, about to go on another assignment. So a lot of feelings here are similar to how it would be in any sort of workspace where there have been mass layoffs and people saying goodbye to their friends and colleagues and trying to figure out what's next.
As you know, the Supreme Court also weighed in on some of the frozen spending at USAID. What did the Chief Justice say, and what does it mean going forward?
That's right. So the administration canceled all of this money in foreign assistance, and there was a federal court judge who ruled that they need to pay out those contracts. This was appealed to the Supreme Court, who ruled in an emergency ruling last night, essentially just giving a pause, not ruling on the merits of the case, but essentially saying, here you go, you have more time to kind of figure this all out. As you mentioned, we have new reporting today coming from the State Department saying that they have canceled up to 10,000 contracts, about $54 billion worth of USAID contracts, and about 6,000 contracts in total. So they are trying to say that this is amounting to real savings here, but the question, of course, is at what cost? And something else in that note, Vlad, that stood out to me is that the State Department said that they finished a 90-day review of all foreign assistance through the State Department and through USAID. As you know, the administration has not been in office for 90 days. They've been in office for just about over 30 days. So there are questions about who conducted those reviews and what exactly went into those reviews of these contracts.
All right. So will we see a ripple effect after, as we pointed out, some 92% of these foreign grants were cut? What is that going to do? I mean, I think that people sometimes, most Americans want to see if there's fraud or if there's corruption or abuse. They don't want to see that. But I think also there's a disconnect between the work that USAID does and the very real consequences for people all over the world who rely on this. I mean, we could see people succumbing to disease, to famine, to starvation, and a lack of access to clean water.
Yeah, Vlad, I think that's a really important point, to not just focus on the workers, but the work that they were doing. And there are questions about the contracts that do remain, what they are actually doing and what has actually been canceled. We also know from my reporting on Capitol Hill, talking to lawmakers in states, that where USAID has a benefit to them. For example, lawmakers in Kansas have raised some alarms about what this would do for food programs run through USAID, on which Kansas farmers depend. And we've seen a lot of that kind of across the country as well. So really just highlighting the kind of work that they're doing, not necessarily the workers themselves.
All right. Caitlin Huey-Burns reporting from outside of USAID headquarters this morning. Thank you very much.